Welcome to this video. This video is a guide for FBA sellers buying standard products in China. This process has 4 phases. Phase 1 is product selection. Phase 2, supplier selection. Phase 3, pre-production. And phase 4 is production. Now, who is this process for? This guide is for Amazon sellers looking to source standard products from China with the intention of making small changes to the product in order to make it their own brand. In other words, private label that product, and with an order value of 5,000 or more per purchase order. Now, this is what the standard flowchart looks like. You can see the 4 phases, and each of the phases has a number of elements under that. We're going to break down each of these elements and look at those in more detail. Let's jump into phase 1, product selection. When selecting a product to sell on Amazon, the ideal quadrant to target is the one with high demand and low competition. In this diagram, that is shown in the top left-hand corner. Now, I'm not going to cover the details of product selection here, as it is a large topic, and I really want to focus more on the process of getting products manufactured in China. However, this is the product selection process flowchart. So let's skip straight into phase 2, the supplier selection. With business-to-business directories like Global Sources and others, people think finding a supplier only takes a few clicks. Well, unfortunately, the problem is not solved yet. These directories only facilitate the first step of the sourcing process, identifying potential suppliers, but they don't really screen or audit them. This is what most Amazon sellers do during phase 1. Now, why do you need to generate a product specification sheet? The purpose of generating a product specification sheet is to provide information about the actual product and the specifications that you need your product to meet, such as product modifications, so that you're able to differentiate yourself against the competition, adding your logo to your product, branded packaging or specific style of packaging, or unique written content such as instructions or marketing material. Now, what are the risks of leaving gaps in your specification sheet? So if you do leave gaps in your specification sheet, it just means the suppliers need to fill them in, which often means the supplier either misinterprets or uses these gaps to their advantage to reduce cost their end, either by using inferior components or material, or even by cutting corners in the process. Now it's time to finalize a list of potential suppliers that you could actually start working with. You need to be analyzing a number of different attributes and comparing them between your potential suppliers. One way to do this is with a comparison chart. Make the list of attributes specific to what is important to you as a buyer, and then work on obtaining all the information from your shortlisted suppliers. Now it's time for the official request for quotation. So the purpose of sending out an official request for quotation is to meet the following objectives. Evaluate each supplier's response to your detailed requests. Use the quotations as leverage to negotiate the best deals. To ensure you remain in control of the selection process. And to start building a solid partnership between you and the supplier. And now it's time to have a look to see whether your supplier is legitimate. Now, conducting due diligence on a potential supplier consists of several steps. Background checks include confirm the company's track record and check they are not close to bankruptcy. Is the business a genuine business? Are they a manufacturer or a trading company? And are they a reputable supplier in their niche? Now you have finalized quotes based upon your specification sheet. You've gathered the information from the attributes in your comparison chart. You now have carried out your due diligence, and it's time now to finalize your main supplier. You can see in this slide we've added the scores, and you can see that supplier B is coming out on top as the preferred supplier. This is the supply selection process as a flowchart. Phase 3 is pre-production. Before you actually place orders and send money to a supplier, you should really try and understand who they are. And the best way to achieve this is through an on-site audit from a qualified third-party company. They will audit the supplier and provide you with a comprehensive report which you will be able to analyze and conclude if the supplier is worthy of dealing with or not. You really need to be creating a control plan that sets out what to do and when to do it. You can also generate a process control plan, which identifies each process step and indicates whether it is critical, i.e., likely to cause serious quality issues if improperly handled or not. This also identifies the QA controls, what is checked, how often, using what materials, and how it is recorded. You can see an example of this in this chart here. When you get your contract together, make sure you include all of the key attributes, which include facility requirements, quality control, inventory management, price and payment terms, intellectual property, insurance and indemnification. Don't forget to include all of the FBA specific requirements in the contract and ensure you get your supplier to chop that contract. Ensure you get pre-production samples. So never place orders for products that have not been sampled correctly. Make sure that you do the following once you get those samples. Write down your tolerances, or in other words, make the distinction between what absolutely has to be as nice as the sample and what can be a little bit off. Ask for the supplier's feedback on these points. It is important to discuss these points with the technical team and not the salespeople. So what should you include in the purchase order? It is now time to place the order. So this should include important information and the following as a minimum: buyer identification with either the logo and the company name in large characters, full contact information from the person who follows the order in the buying organization, full supplier company information, purchase order, which should be a unique number, and purchase order date, list of the products with ordered quantity, unit price, and total price. Most important specifications for each product. Do not forget about labeling and packaging at this point. If you have written a product checklist, refer to it in the purchase order. Also, don't forget the terms of purchase: currency, Incoterms, loading port and receiving port, shipment date promised by the supplier, payment terms, penalty for late shipment. And if you have any quality control plans, also refer to those in the purchase order. So it is your responsibility to make sure products comply with Amazon terms of service. So make sure you go and do your homework with respect to this and don't cut corners yourself. When it comes to payment, don't forget that when you're sourcing in China, it really is important to understand that as long as you owe the supplier money, you are still in a position of power. Payment schedules should be split with the initial payment with the purchase order being no more than 50% of the total order value. And in fact, the ideal percentage would be around 30%. So here is the pre-production phase as a flowchart, which you can follow here. So now let's have a look at the final phase, which is production, phase 4. Now production has started, you need to be proactive and follow up with the supplier. This could be through email, Skype, or even WeChat. Whichever way you choose, it is important to have regular updates from the supplier regarding the production progress. Do you really need to get products inspected? Well, this is one of the biggest mistakes Amazon sellers make, not getting products inspected before they are shipped. Yet it is one of the easiest and most logical steps to take. Having a third-party inspection company inspect products while they're still at the factory allows issues to be identified and fed back to the supplier so that corrective actions can be worked on. As an Amazon seller, you are classed as the importer of products. So therefore, you are legally responsible for ensuring all products meet the required regulations before they come into the country you intend to sell them in. An example of this would be a Bluetooth speaker, a very popular product that sells well on Amazon, by the way. However, before products are even allowed into the United States by customs and excise, you must provide the correct certification stating that your Bluetooth speakers meet the correct FCC regulations. If you cannot provide this, or you didn't even understand it was required, there is only one outcome. Products will not be allowed into the country. Worse still, customs may just turn around and destroy the goods. So make sure you take action and understand the requirements for your product. Ignorance is not a card that you can play with Amazon. Approving and signing off production. This step is about approving production before it is shipped. This can be achieved by a two-step approach. Get the third-party inspection company to pick up a random sample or two and have them sent to you via express courier so that you can physically see the final product that will be sold. Review the third-party inspection report in conjunction with the physical sample and make the decision to officially sign off the products as acceptable. The final payment is now due at this point. Now, the best way to pay, well, it really depends upon the value of your order, but in general, a bank wire or TT is the best method. It is inexpensive and it is normally the preferred method of payment by most Chinese suppliers. Now, what are the consequences of using the wrong freight forwarder? Well, let me tell you, delayed deliveries with little or opaque information from the freight forwarder, high custom duties impacting your margin dramatically in the end. Some sensitive products such as batteries or scissors are refused by most shippers. But the point I'm getting here is make sure you use a reputable freight forwarder to get your products from China to your final destination. It is highly recommended that you do two things. One, use a logistics provider based in the country you are importing to, United States for example, and use a logistics provider that has experience with Amazon shipments. So just to recap what the production steps look like, here is the flowchart in detail. So there you have it, a very quick overview of what is required when sourcing your private label product from China. Please leave a comment below and we're sure going to come back to you. Thanks very much for listening. I'll see you again soon.